Something I really value in jiu-jitsu and in life in general is respect, mutual respect, right? So like if I'm going out there onto the competition stage, I don't care like how much better I perceive myself to be than my opponent. As long as he's demonstrating respect to me, I'm going to demonstrate respect to him in turn, right? I wouldn't be able to compete if he wasn't coming out there to compete with me, right? In a sense, everyone in the jiu-jitsu community that is competing or training, we all rely on each other. Without other people doing this, we can't do it. So I think that you ought to afford everyone basic respect, like not acting like a fucking douchebag during a match. If you're so much better than them, look, go out there, take him down, pass his guard, submit him, right? There's no need to act like a fucking disrespectful clown. You know, and the response people could say is, all right, well then, like if somebody does that, go out there and do the same to them, just fuck them up. Okay, but you know, it's a choice you're making to be a fucking douchebag. If you want to be a fucking douchebag, you should expect that people in turn are not going to demonstrate respect to you. If you don't show respect to me, I'm definitely not going to show respect to you. I actually don't even care how good you are at jiu-jitsu. I'm just not going to respect you as a person, which to me is much more important than like anything related to jiu-jitsu. I think this sort of thing happens oftentimes because a lot of people who come into jiu-jitsu have pretty big ego issues, right? Especially competitors. So they start to think to themselves, oh, if I'm good at competing, I'm better than other people, right? Those people aren't as good as me. I'm more important than them because I'm a better competitor. All you being a better competitor shows is that you're a better competitor. Literally, it demonstrates nothing else, right? It says nothing about your worth as a person. It says nothing about your value as a person. So, when I see people who act like that, to me, they look like losers. Like, you're a fucking loser, bro. Like, your self-worth is connected to your ability to compete successfully. And that's, in my opinion, it's kind of pathetic. I think that when you look at competitors, typically there's two main things motivating them. And everybody has a bit of both in them, but sometimes people sort of tilt towards one or the other. Okay, the first motivation is the desire to grow as an athlete or, just as maybe a practitioner of jiu-jitsu, right? These people, that motivation, that is, you just like getting better over time, right? You view the competition stage as a platform on which to develop skills, right? The second motivation is ego, right? You want people to think you're the shit, right? Now, guys, I don't believe anyone that tells me that they don't have any ego whatsoever. That doesn't exist, especially if you're competing. Of course you do, right? Like, I am guilty of it myself. Of course I want to be thought of as competent at what I'm doing. Everybody does. But I can honestly say that the main thing motivating me to compete is not ego. I mean, honestly, I think if you're doing a niche sport like jiu-jitsu and your main motivating factor is like fame, bro, what are you doing? There's way better ways to go about like having people think you're cool than pursuing jiu-jitsu. I'm pursuing jiu-jitsu on a fundamental level because I just happen to like it, right? I like the sport. I like developing the craft of jiu-jitsu. Right? I like seeing myself getting better. I like seeing my students get better, etc. Things like that. To me, that's really rewarding. It's a value. It's an intrinsic value, right? It's a value in and of itself. It doesn't need extrinsic motivation to give it worth. Now, again, there's always going to be a bit of both, but I tend to believe that your primary motivation ought to be intrinsic. And I think when it is intrinsic, we see when more people view jiu-jitsu as, in that sense, rather than being about ego gratification, it's much healthier for all of the individual practitioners. And in addition, it's also much healthier for the community, right? We get a more welcoming, a friendlier community. You get less like fucking douchebags in the community, things like that. Again, there's nothing wrong with healthy ego gratification. Everyone is guilty of that, right? Like, including myself, right? Of course, everyone is guilty of that. However, you got to kind of balance it, right? I think as long as it doesn't overwhelm you and sort of like really take control of your life, I don't think it's a problem, right? I think as long as the main thing pushing you to do this is skill cultivation, as long as that's the main thing you're doing, I think you're in the right headspace. And I think that the sort of douchebaggery, like in that clip, I think it's going to be less prevalent.